Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert. Thank you, college football. Thank you for saving the best for last. We knew Week 13 was going to be an extremely exciting week of college football. Games that had college football playoff implications, games that had conference standing implications, but we had some of the best games of the entire year right here in Rivalry Week, and we're just going to jump right on in with maybe the best game of the entire season, one that we didn't even have up on our big board, but one that we did address. Number 7 LSU traveling to number 22 Texas A&M, a game that the Aggies won 74-72 in 7 overtimes. It was the highest combined scoring game in FBS history. 84 points combined were scored in those 7 overtimes. And it had a bit of a controversial ending to it. For those of you that watched that game, they were able to stay up for that game. The game started at 6:30 Central Time, and I don't think ended until about 11:30. So about a 5-hour college football game there. And towards the end of regulation, it was a wild ending. We had the Kellen Mond fumble. He was lining up in shotgun formation, fumbled the snap, and when he picked up that A&M out of timeouts at this time, picked up the snap and his knee was on the ground. He ended up throwing an interception on that play. LSU thought they had won. Ed Ogeron was actually dumped in Gatorade. They had a Gatorade bath for Coach O after that interception. They went back and reviewed and said Kellen Mond, when he picked up the fumble, his knee was on the ground, resulted in a 10-second runoff. Then they had 4th and 18, still before this overtime period. And it looked as if Texas A&M did not pick up the first down. Looked like they were about a yard short. The ball did not, in my opinion, cross that line. As we all know, the yellow line that's on TV. It did not cross that first down marker. However, the referees gave them that first down. And then they gave them 1 extra second there. When they spiked the ball, they looked like the game was over. 1 second was put back on the clock. A&M scoring on that final play of regulation and then forcing overtime. And one of the wildest endings and wildest games that I've ever seen in all my years of watching college football. So that was a heck of an SEC matchup. We knew neither of these two schools were going to go to the college football playoff. The odds of LSU, even being number 7, getting in there, were very slim. But however, they're certainly out of the race now. A&M finally getting that signature win under Jimbo Fisher that they wanted. That's why they brought Jimbo Fisher here, to win games like that. And they certainly did that in a very dramatic and exciting way. We're going to backtrack a little bit and look at some of the bigger games of Friday. Oklahoma clinching a berth in the Big 12 championship game and keeping their college football playoff hopes alive with a 59-56 victory over West Virginia, and that game being on the road. And oddly enough, the defense was the difference maker in this one. We knew coming into this, with Kyler Murray and Will Grier going at it at the quarterback position, and two teams that didn't have the best of defenses, we knew this was going to be a shootout. But Oklahoma ended up having 2 defensive touchdowns, and that ended up being the difference maker for this game, winning that game by just 3 points. If Will Grier just had a little bit more awareness and enough to get the ball out of his hands to get rid of the football, maybe West Virginia could have won that game. But a lot of credit to Lincoln Riley and the Sooners team for going on the road and getting a huge win there. Kyler Murray, 364 yards through the air, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. Will Grier, 539 yards and 4 touchdowns through the air. So it was a back-and-forth battle the whole way. And ended up, Oklahoma's defense came through clutch and got the win for the Sooners. They now have a rematch against Texas in the Big 12 championship game with a potential spot in the college football playoff on the line for the Sooners. Of course, the Longhorns being out of that race as of right now. Washington, same night, same Friday night. Washington taking care of Washington State, and what was a pretty big upset in my opinion. I actually made the prediction change, switched my pick to the Cougars to win that game over the Huskies, but what a game that was if you watched it. The heavy snowfall coming down in Pullman has made that game a whole lot better. Anytime you can watch a game in that type of environment, in that type of weather, it makes it a lot more fun. Washington winning that game 28-15, and the difference maker in this one, not Jake Browning, not Gardner Minshew, but Myles Gaskin, who had 170 yards on the ground and 3 touchdowns. There was not a single passing touchdown in this game. There were actually 3 combined interceptions between Jake Browning and Gardner Minshew in this game, total of 5 combined rushing touchdowns. So it was not the most exciting of games. It was not the cleanest of games. There was plenty of mistakes in this one, but nonetheless, Washington getting the win there and advancing to the Pac-12 championship against Utah, also ending Washington State's potential college football playoff hopes. So I know it's a killer for Cougar fans, and a year this was supposed to be your year, the year to snap that 5-game losing streak to the Huskies. Just couldn't get the job done, but nonetheless, a heck of a year for Mike Leach and his squad, a team that I did not have very high expectations for coming into this season. Moving on to Saturday, by far the biggest game of the weekend, at least in our eyes, was Ohio State and Michigan, and the Buckeyes just annihilating Michigan 62-39. And everybody was picking Michigan in this game. A majority of the people were, and I just could not figure out why that was the case. I know Ohio State did not look good against Maryland last week or 2 weekends ago. And had they lost that game, I think maybe Michigan could have come in here because maybe the morale would have been down for Ohio State. They knew their Big Ten title hopes would have been dashed. Any college football playoff hopes would have been dashed. But Maryland not converting that 2-point conversion has now allowed Ohio State to sneak into the Big Ten championship game and potentially back in to the college football playoff. Dwayne Haskins had 396 yards through the air and 6 total touchdowns, or 6 touchdowns through the air, I should say. This was the most points that Ohio State has scored against Michigan during this rivalry, and also the most points any team has scored against Michigan in regulation. Of course, not going into overtime. 62 points. It was an unbelievable offensive performance. Ohio State taking care of business there and looking like a potential college football playoff contender. I'm very curious to see where the committee ranks the Buckeyes coming in to these rankings on Tuesday. And, of course, we'll have our analysis coming out on that Tuesday night or Wednesday morning. So make sure you keep your eye out for that. But that's going to be a dilemma for the committee. I think Ohio State will take care of Northwestern in the Big Ten championship game, and then just going to go from there. Where we have another controversy, much like we did last year with that one-loss Alabama team and that one-loss Ohio State team. It's going to be really interesting to see that. Alabama recovered once again after a very slow start, only leading Auburn by 3 points at halftime. Remember, the week before, they were tied at halftime against the Citadel. Ended up recovering, though, winning that game 52-21. The defense really stepping up in that one. And the offense, once again, led by Tua Tagovailoa, putting up some fireworks by far. Some very acrobatic catches by Alabama. The offense clicking on all cylinders once again. The question is, can they afford slow starts against a better team such as Georgia? Or if they make the college football playoff, can they afford a slow start against a team like Ohio State, Clemson, Notre Dame, someone like that? Will they be able to bounce back in the second half, much like they've done these past 2 weeks? That's going to be something they have to keep their eye on, because the Citadel and Auburn, obviously not the top cream of the crop opponents that Alabama will be facing in the coming weeks. And then finally, Notre Dame surviving on the road 24-17 against USC, a game that was actually a lot closer than we expected that one. I think the spread there was 10 or 11 in favor of Notre Dame. Surviving that game. Now, the question is, will Notre Dame make the playoff? In my eyes, it's a no-brainer. They should be in there. Maybe they're just going to be number 4. Maybe they're going to be number 3. But they should be in the college football playoff. Some people are having their doubts because they do not have that conference championship game. But I think Notre Dame is the first team to automatically say they are a lock for the playoff. If they do not get in with a perfect 12-0 record, I think something is extremely flawed with the college football playoff committee. So we'll have to wait and find out for that. Of course, those final rankings coming out next Sunday. We will know who is in the playoff, who your New Year's Six bowl opponents will be, and all that good stuff by next Sunday. But Notre Dame should automatically be a lock there with a very narrow win over USC, who finishes the year 5-7, will not go bowling. Will they keep Clay Helton? And as long as we're on the lines of coaches being fired, this past weekend, Larry Fedora over at North Carolina has been let go after back-to-back 9+ losses. 9+ losses in 1 year. I think they went 3-9 last year, 2-10 this year. So a very pitiful performance for the past 2 years by North Carolina. And then also Cliff Kingsbury. We've been talking about this all year long, way back in the offseason. If he couldn't get Texas Tech to a bowl game, he was going to be out. He had them lined up perfectly for a very good year, 5-2. Ended up losing 5 straight to finish the year. Finished 5-7 for the Red Raiders. Cliff Kingsbury is now out as Texas Tech head coach. It's going to be very interesting to see who they can replace him with coming into next season. But that's not a huge surprise there. We knew that was going to be more than likely going to happen if he couldn't get them to 6 wins. And really, I think he needed about 7 or 8 to really win the administration and the fan base back over again. Now we're going to go ahead and break these down real quick. Our Week 13 record, 27-7, 79.4%. These past 3 weeks have been phenomenal. We've I think 83-22. That's right at 79%. So we finished the year extremely strong. Now there are a couple of games left. Of course, we've got Army-Navy. We've got a couple of games that are going to be made up due to the hurricanes that we had earlier in the year. Those coming this coming Saturday. So, of course, that'll actually boost our record a little bit, assuming those games go in our favor. So we will not have our official overall record solidified until a couple more weeks. But right now, we have 378 and 122, right at 500 games. So we'll be a little over 500 games by the end of the year. 75.6%, which is actually a 1/10% better than where we were last season. So we might end up finishing Our benchmark was always 76%. That's where we want to be. And I think we're going to reach that goal by the end of the year. So, of course, keep your eyes out in the coming weeks when we have a whole video dedicated to our overall record and the teams that we predicted the records exactly correct. We did that last year, went through, and we show you how many teams we nailed the records on, how many we're off by, stuff like that. So we'll definitely have a video coming out on that soon. Against the spread, I think I jinxed myself. Last week, I said that we had never really done super great at 8-0, 7-1, nothing too major like that, but we never done too bad. I think we've never done worse than 3-5, and here we are in the final week of the season going 1-7. And I won't sugarcoat it. One thing we don't do here at the Gridiron Expert is sugarcoat our losses. We own up to them, and it is what it is. 12.5% this week on the spread brings our overall to 65-62, so right at 51.2%. And our goal all year long has been to finish above 500. I think we will do that. We'll continue to release spread picks for bowl games, for conference championships, and maybe that'll boost that record a little bit or make it worse, depending on how things go. But it is what it is. We know our forte is in predictions. As you can see, our forte is picking these games straight up. That's kind of what we do here. That is what our go-to thing is here. We're doing the spreads for fun and hoping to continue to be above 500, and I think that's what we're going to end up finishing with. So not our best week against the spread, but it is what it is. We will just hope to bounce back next week. And of course, as I mentioned, just a little bit of a rundown. We will have our college football playoff analysis video coming out Tuesday or Wednesday. We will have our conference championship preview and our predictions for those games coming out later on in the week as well. And in the coming weeks, we will have our year-long recap, and then after that, we will start doing bowl predictions. So I know you guys all love predictions, and we will have days and days and weeks dedicated to those bowl games, analyzing those and predicting all those games. So make sure you stay tuned for all of that. And one last thing, some of the big conference championships that are coming out, we predicted 3 of those correctly back in the offseason. Of course, the SEC championship between Alabama and Georgia, the Pac-12 championship between Washington and Utah, and the Big 12 championship between Oklahoma and Texas. So 3 of the Power 5 conference championships we did predict correctly back in the offseason. Of course, we'll address those at a later date as well. So week 13, thank you for saving the best for last. It was phenomenal. Hopefully we'll see even better games in conference championship week starting on Friday night and carrying over. And by next Sunday, we will know our top 4 teams in college football. And of course, tons of videos coming out for that later on. So as always, please continue to go check us out on Twitter. A lot of spread picks and prediction changes coming out on there. And always here on YouTube. Please continue to like, comment, and subscribe. And we will see you next time on the Gridiron Expert.